You know, bright light, dim light, burnout, you control the switch. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the signs and symptoms and causes. But, you know, there's this sort of quandary, you know, as Christians, we're called to shine and shine bright. Okay? And shining bright all the time, though, you know, does that lead to burnout? So I'm going to try to present to you how we can shine brightly, but not run into troubles with burnout at the same time. So getting started, the goal here is to help with us as individuals. You know, hopefully this is preventative. If there's people that are struggling with some elements of this as we go through this process, certainly hopefully that this will be beneficial to you just very personally. Help identify people that are struggling as far as colleagues, family members, friends, and certainly patients that we work with. Burnout, a huge topic. We certainly can't cover everything in an hour. We're going to cover some basics. But then I'm going to talk about the cure and treatment process to be able to help us navigate out of burnout in any kind of life situation that we're struggling in. You know, there's a lot of, you know, this is U.S. News and World Report from October of 06, Science and the Soul. And there's a lot of advancements and endeavors in trying to figure out, do science and faith, religion, really go together? And I believe they really do. And the area of psychiatry, I think, is where that really blends together perfectly. I think the new era of apologetics is going to be looking at the hard sciences, the biological sciences, and the soft psychological sciences of, you know, how we function. Burnout, a real good topic here to discuss with a bunch of physicians, as 25 to 60% of physicians will experience burnout at some point in their career. And primary cares are the highest, with almost 50% in some of the studies I saw experiencing burnout at some times in their career. So a pretty significant numbers there. Leads to compromised patient care, depression, addiction, divorce, and suicide. As you know, our profession has high prevalence of all those. So our goal here is to look at a definition of burnout. What are some of the causes, signs and symptoms that we can recognize? What's the treatment? And then we'll hopefully I'll have a chance to go through an example of the treatment model with you. So what is burnout? What is the definition of burnout? So some common statements that you hear people say that, you know, are experiencing some burnout or some struggles. I don't enjoy work like I used to. Or my functioning is slipping across the board. Everybody always needs something from me. I'm so far behind, feel overwhelmed. How many feel that a lot of time anyways, right? I don't even care anymore. And Ecclesiastes is a great book, I think, about burnout. You know, Solomon is talking about as he pursues many things and pursues them very ardently with a lot of passion, a lot of endeavor. You know, you look at all of his, a lot of his quotes, he talks about all his vanity, you know, all his frivolous, meaningless, prideful. He talks about things being a vexation, an annoyance, an irritation. Some of these are quotes from Solomon. Then I considered all that my hands had done, and the toil I had expended in doing it, and behold, all was vanity and a striving after wind, and there was nothing to be gained under the sun. And this is just a common refrain of his. And just as we, you know, toil, and the job that we do with our hands, very similar to Solomon back in the day. Another quote, so I hated life, because what is done under the sun was grievous to me, for all is vanity and a striving after wind. For all his days are full of sorrow, and his work is a vexation. Even in the night, his heart does not rest. This also is vanity. How many people have had sleepless nights worrying about things to be done, patients that we left at the office or in the hospital? Then I saw that all toil and all skill and work come from a man's envy of his neighbor. This also is vanity and a striving after wind. And we're going to talk about some elements of pride in my kingdom come versus thy kingdom come as it insidiously invades our functionings as a physician. He who loves money will not be satisfied with money, nor he who loves wealth with his income. And you can substitute he who loves the practice, the status, the work with patients, the getting in nitty-gritty, being important. This also is vanity. And what he was describing is distorted lenses of seeing things, distorted perspective. You know, Solomon was pursuing things horizontally and not pursuing God first. and that led to a lot of his difficulties. And we're going to really sort of look at that in a lot more concrete ways of how that leads to burnout and symptoms around burnout, as well as then is looking at the treatment or the cure, how to be able to have a real concrete process to, as the Bible says, cast our eyes on Jesus. What does that mean very concretely in our daily functioning and lives? So what is burnout? So looking at a definition of burnout, the secular definition, it's not just being tired. So we're not talking about just being physically tired. That's not the definition of burnout. Also, as we go through and as I looked at burnout a little bit and read into it a little bit more, you don't see any time constraints for burnout. So it's not like you have to feel this way for 2 weeks, 5 months, 2 years, or these stressors have to be ongoing for X amount of period. There is no time constraints on burnout. Herbert Freudenberger in 1974 was actually the first person to coin the term burnout. I thought it was a lot older than that. I was sort of interested to see that it was in 1974. Defined it as a couple different ways, but part of his phraseology was a debilitating psychological condition brought about by not just work stress, but unrelieved work stress. Very important aspect, unrelieved work stress. And as we go through this a little bit, we're going to talk about what do we do to relieve the work stress, for stress relief from a psychological, emotional, spiritual way. The extinction of motivation or incentive, especially where one's devotion, keyword, devotion to a cause or relationship fails to produce the desired results. So a lot of times we're looking horizontally and we're starting to devote our time and then our mind and our heart to endeavors as healthcare workers, and it's not producing the desired results because we're putting our eggs in the wrong basket. Leads to emotional exhaustion, not just physical, but emotional, psychological exhaustion, and a reduced sense of personal accomplishment. So with burnout, there's this, I'm not doing enough, I'm not getting accomplished what I want, I'm not getting my needs met as I endeavor into these activities. An experience of long-term exhaustion and diminished interest or engagement in all areas of life. So it's just insidious as it infects all areas of our life, as we'll sort of talk about with some of the symptoms. From a spiritual standpoint, this is a lot harder to find information about, but it just in my practice, in my life, as some of my struggles along the way and people that I've worked with, to me it comes down to misplaced worship. It's really a product of our worship. To me, as I define worship, worship is perceiving God accurately and then responding accordingly or appropriately. Perceiving God accurately and responding appropriately. And as we look at a treatment process or an intervention process for this, perceive and respond are two very key elements of the decision-making process and the treatment process. But perceiving God accurately and then responding appropriately. What we do, and there's a lot of traps in our work as healthcare workers to sometimes get off of perceiving God accurately, and then we start to look at other things to fill needs that only He can really fill, or at least looking to Him first, and then other things second, instead of the other way around, as Solomon found out. So as I said, we start to put our eggs in the wrong basket. Instead of putting our eggs in God's basket, looking to Him for our fulfillment and to get our needs met, we start to look at our profession, our status, our importance to patients, our standing for justice and right, and those things with the insurance companies. And we're starting to look at those to fulfill our needs as opposed to looking vertically to fill our needs. And this insidious process of, we don't really set out to really be self-serving and my kingdom come and my will be done, but this insidious process happens where as we endeavor day in and day out, it's really about getting our needs met or relieving our pain, stress, frustrations, getting our control, getting our agenda attended to, that really starts to drive and motivate our behaviors, conduct, thoughts, and activities. I don't think most people set out to be, okay, darn it, this is all about me and, all going to be about what I want and what I need. I think most people go into healthcare and really want to help people, but this insidious process plays out, and then we become the authority and feel we need to do everything or be responsible for everything instead of looking to God being the ultimate authority and then us just being a steward of what He gives us responsibility for. Come on in, guys, grab some handouts and have a seat. Another way to look at it is sort of a battle fatigue. I was able to go over to Iraq a few years ago and teach over there, and just talking to a lot of soldiers and things, there's just this battle fatigue when you're under stress and under duress and on high alert for a